In world news, a new report suggests the situation in Iraq's Anbar province is descending into sectarian violence. Al-Qaeda-affiliated forces are now consolidating gains in Fallujah and Ramadi with a push east to Baghdad, where a suicide bomber attacked an army recruitment center Thursday, killing 23. New analysis finds the groups are also expanding dramatically into Syria, partly as a way to recruit and exploit sectarian divisions in Iraq. Now some Republicans are criticizing the White House for failing to reach a status of forces agreement with the government. Democrats say it's the Iraq government itself that has not made a decision. So should the U.S. intervene? That's our topic this half hour. We have our legal analyst Chris Tritico, our news analyst Mustafa Tamiz, and public policy analyst Jackie Bally, all joining us once again from the newsroom. Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, so what do you say about this situation?
You know, when George Bush made the decision to go into Iraq, there was a whole bunch of us, I was on radio at the time, a whole bunch of us that were saying at that time, why are we going into Iraq when the person who attacked us is in Afghanistan? And at that time, I said, what are we going to do when it's time to leave? The George Bush administration, before he left office, cut the deal for the forces to leave Iraq and didn't cut a continuing security agreement. And that hampered the Obama administration and how they were going to move forward. They had to pull the troops out on schedule because the Iraqi government would not renegotiate that deal. And so I think, Jackie Bally, for the Republicans to say this is the Obama administration's fault is not fair, given the fact that George Bush cut that deal. But really, the overriding question to me on Iraq is, was it really worth it for the United States to take out Saddam Hussein, lose all those lives, and then destabilize that country to the position it is today?
Well, he is president right now, so even no matter what was made or what happened prior to, it's his responsibility to now come in. And the status of forces agreement that we've been discussing, that could have been negotiated, that could have been worked on. And that's the transition period that we wanted to see for them to have a healthy government. Unfortunately, our goal was to go in there, try to help them have a stabilized government. We didn't have that agreement in place. And now Al-Qaeda
Who's we?
We did not have a status of agreement in place. We, as in
the United States.
United States.
Right.
And as a result, Al-Qaeda did the opposite. He recruited, he trained, and became more powerful, and that's why you're seeing his presence.
Does this fall on the Obama administration?
No, but the sad part of it, about 8,000 Iraqis have lost their lives in 2013. It's the second most violent nation behind Syria. We have spent over $800 billion fighting this war. And so last week we were talking about should we extend the unemployment benefit or not, and the cost of which is $6 billion. We spent $800 billion in Iraq. At some point, we have to walk away from this and let the Iraqis do this. Now, I feel sad for what's going on there, but some of it was caused by us in a sense that there's a question, should we have been there in the first place?
But and we can't answer that today, but now, should we go back in? And is the public even going to support that?
There's no appetite for war in the United States. And there's a question of, can we afford it? If we're not able to extend our own unemployment benefits, and the Republican Party is making a big fuss over that for only $6 billion, but they're willing to spend more billions of dollars being in war in Iraq, I mean, we have to pull out of these nations.
I want you to answer that question, but I got to go to Sally first. I want to bring Sally in for a question.
Yeah, right now I want to ask you guys about what the House Speaker John Boehner said earlier in the week. He was saying that the U.S. definitely needs to provide more equipment and more aid to Iraq, but he's ruling out a reintroduction of U.S. troops. And that's what a lot of people watching, I know, really want to know about is, you know, are we going to see a reintroduction of troops there? And
that was exactly the question we were talking about, Jackie Bally. Should the United States now go back in with troops?
I think Boehner said it perfectly. Give them assistance, give them aid, again, to help them with this transition, but we never said that we want to go to war. We never said we're going to go into the country. We never said we're going to put our men and women on the battlefield and battleground to go into the country. To answer Mustafa's question about unemployment, we're saying that there is a law and policy in place, but putting that kind of money into continuing to extend certain services that was supposed to be just a Band-Aid, not a long-term fix, is not necessary. The dollars that we're talking about to go in for aid and assistance would not be the same money that if we were actually putting our troops on the ground.
Aren't the Republicans talking out of both sides of their mouths here, saying that you should have had a status of forces agreement agreement, which would have left troops in Iraq, and then John Boehner saying we're not sending troops back over there. Just so they're leaving the administration with no answer.
Look, the Republican plan on everything is attack Obama. That's basically that comes out in every aspect of this. But the other thing that I think that I want to leave off on this is that as people begin to create the drumbeat about Iran, what the Obama administration is doing in Iran is critically important in solving problems with diplomacy rather than declaring war. And I am glad that that's happening. And as we start looking at foreign policy again, when the question of Iran comes, people have to remember what happened in Iraq, what happened in Afghanistan.
And looking back at it, real quick, was taking out Saddam Hussein worth all of this?
The way that it's transpired and the way that we've gone across it, and having a person like Obama who has no foreign policy experience, unfortunately we're looking at it and saying no. When we originally wanted to go in there, we wanted to have stabilization, we wanted to have peace.
We're going to have to leave it right there. I'm sorry, I got to cut you off right there. I know you wanted to come back in there. I know you're going to say George Bush didn't have any foreign policy experience either, but we're done.
I was going to say that this is the president that took out Osama bin Laden. That's what I was going to say.
All right, guys, thanks so much.
All
We
right.
appreciate it. We'll see you next week.